the Wild West. The very name conjures up vivid images: dusty saloons filled with grizzled prospectors, showdowns at high noon, the crack of gunfire echoing through the streets, outlaws on the run, pursued by steely-eyed lawmen. This is the Wild West we see in movies, read about in novels, and imagine in our minds. But how accurate is this portrayal? Was the Wild West truly a land of constant violence and lawlessness? The reality, as with most historical periods, is far more nuanced than the myth. The Wild West, encompassing the vast expanse of the American frontier during the late 19th century, has become a symbol of adventure, freedom, and, yes, violence. This era, however, was much more than just shootouts and saloon brawls. It was a time of immense change and development, marked by westward expansion, the growth of new industries, and the displacement of Native American populations. While violence undoubtedly played a role in shaping the Wild West, it's crucial to separate fact from fiction, and examine the true nature and extent of this violence. This essay delves into the heart of the Wild West, exploring the factors that contributed to its reputation for lawlessness, while shedding light on the reality of life on the frontier. We'll examine the role of Hollywood in perpetuating certain myths, and delve into the historical events and social conditions that fueled violence in this era. By understanding the complexities of the Wild West, we can gain a more accurate and nuanced perspective on this pivotal period in American history. The Wild West continues to captivate our imaginations. It represents a time of both great opportunity and great turmoil, a period where the old ways of life clashed with the new. By examining the reality of violence in the Wild West, we can gain a deeper appreciation for the challenges and triumphs of those who lived through it. Hollywood has played an undeniable role in shaping our perception of the Wild West. From classic westerns starring John Wayne to more modern interpretations like Unforgiven and Deadwood, the silver screen has often depicted the frontier as a land where violence was commonplace and justice was served at the end of a gun. While these portrayals can be entertaining, they often stray from historical accuracy, creating a distorted view of the past. One of the most common exaggerations is the frequency of gunfights. In movies and TV shows, it seems like every other scene involves a shootout on a dusty street or a showdown in a saloon. In reality, while gunfights did occur, they were not the everyday occurrences Hollywood would have us believe. The vast majority of people who lived in the Wild West likely went their entire lives without witnessing a gunfight. Another exaggeration is the portrayal of lawlessness. While it's true that many areas of the West were sparsely populated and lacked formal law enforcement, communities often found ways to maintain order. Vigilante justice, while not always ideal, was sometimes necessary to address crime and maintain a semblance of peace. Additionally, as towns grew, they established courts, appointed sheriffs, and implemented laws, gradually bringing order to the frontier. Hollywood's tendency to romanticize outlaw figures is another distortion of reality. While figures like Jesse James and Billy the Kid have become legendary figures, it's important to remember that they were criminals who terrorized communities. The romanticized image of the outlaw, often portrayed as a Robin Hood-like figure, ignores the very real harm they inflicted on others. It's important to approach Hollywood's depictions of the Wild West with a critical eye. While entertaining, they should not be mistaken for accurate historical accounts. The vastness of the American West, stretching from the Mississippi River to the Pacific Ocean, played a significant role in shaping its reputation for lawlessness. Much of this territory remained unorganized and unincorporated for decades, meaning it lacked formal statehood and the established legal systems that came with it. This lack of centralized authority contributed to the perception of the Wild West as a place where anything went. However, the reality of law and order in the West was far more complex than simply a free-for-all. While it's true that the absence of formal law enforcement in many areas created opportunities for crime and violence, it also fostered a sense of self-reliance and community responsibility. People had to look out for themselves and their neighbors, often relying on informal systems of justice to maintain order. In many frontier towns, citizens took it upon themselves to establish law and order. They formed vigilante committees to apprehend criminals, held public trials, and meted out punishments, often in the form of whippings, banishment, or, in extreme cases, hanging. While these methods were often crude and lacked due process, they were a necessary response to the unique challenges of frontier life. As settlements grew and prospered, they gradually transitioned from informal to more formal systems of law enforcement. They elected sheriffs, built jails, and established courts, gradually replacing vigilante justice with a more structured legal system. This process, however, took time, and many areas of the West operated under a combination of formal and informal law enforcement for years. The discovery of gold and other precious metals in the American West triggered a series of economic booms that drew fortune seekers from across the country and around the world. These gold rushes, while bringing prosperity to some, also fueled violence and lawlessness, particularly in the hastily established mining towns that sprang up almost overnight. Mining towns were often rough and tumble places, characterized by transient populations, loose morals, and an abundance of saloons and gambling halls. The combination of readily available alcohol, large sums of money changing hands, and the inherent risks associated with mining created a volatile environment where disputes could quickly escalate into violence. Competition for resources lay at the heart of much of the violence in mining towns. Miners clashed with each other over claim disputes, and tensions often flared between miners and mining companies over wages, working conditions, and land rights. These disputes sometimes erupted into full-blown riots, leading to injuries, deaths, and significant property damage. The influx of people into mining towns often outpaced the ability to establish law and order. Law enforcement, when it existed, was often overwhelmed and ill-equipped to deal with the rampant crime and violence. This created a sense of lawlessness that further contributed to the violence. The saying, "There's gold in them, their hills," became a double-edged sword, representing both the promise of wealth and the potential for danger that came with it. As European settlers expanded westward, Native American tribes faced increasing pressure to leave their ancestral lands. This period, marked by significant displacement, saw many tribes forcibly removed from their homes. The infamous Trail of Tears is a stark reminder of this tragic chapter in American history. Despite immense hardships, many Native American tribes resisted, striving to protect their land, culture, and way of life. Their resilience and courage in the face of adversity echo through the annals of history, reminding us of the enduring spirit of these communities. In the late 19th century, a series of key events and legislation began to shape the landscape of the American West. The Homestead Act of 1862, for instance, encouraged the settlement of Western territories by offering land to anyone willing to cultivate it. Meanwhile, the Pacific Railway Acts facilitated the construction of the Transcontinental Railroad, connecting the east and west coasts and transforming commerce and travel. These developments, among others, played a crucial role in the expansion and governance of the frontier. The social structures and self-governance of the Wild West were unique and often improvised. Small towns and settlements frequently formed their own local governments, with sheriffs and town councils maintaining order, more or less. Communities were tight-knit, and justice was often swift and, well, sometimes brutal. Vigilante groups, known as regulators, sometimes took the law into their own hands when official enforcement was lacking. These grassroots systems of governance were essential in territories where formal institutions were still developing. The Wild West was also infamous for its notorious figures and isolated incidents. Outlaws like Jesse James and Billy the Kid became legends, their exploits capturing the imagination of the public. These figures often operated in the gray areas of the law, becoming both feared and admired. Isolated incidents, such as the gunfight at the OK Corral, further cemented the Wild West's reputation for lawlessness and violence. These stories, though sometimes exaggerated, highlight the tumultuous nature of life on the frontier. Today, the violence of the Wild West is often romanticized in popular culture, but it's important to understand it in a modern context. While the frontier was indeed a place of conflict and danger, it was also a land of opportunity and resilience. Modern interpretations, whether in film, literature, or other media, continue to explore the complexities of this era, reflecting on its impact and legacy. By examining the Wild West through a contemporary lens, we gain a deeper appreciation for the challenges and triumphs of those who lived it.